Hey friends, and welcome to another shadowing session with me. If you've seen some of my other videos, then you know that shadowing or imitation was one of the main techniques I used to work on my pronunciation when I was learning English. While regular ESL classes are great when it comes to teaching grammar, vocabulary, and communication overall, pronunciation was not a priority. So I took matters in my own hands. I have another video about the different methods I use to learn English. I'll leave the link below so you can check it out later. For the shadowing session today, I chose the American actress and businesswoman Jessica Alba. She's so famous that I don't think she needs any further introduction. The fragment I chose is from an interview that Maria Menounos did with her in May 2023. And speaking of Maria Menounos, I've shadowed her as well. I'll put the link to the entire interview with Jessica Alba and the link to my earlier shadowing video with Maria Menounos in the description box below. So here's what we're going to do today. First, we will listen to a short fragment from the interview I chose. Then I will analyze it line by line, and at the end, I will say it together with her, trying to match her speed, intonation, stress, and way of speaking overall. And I dare you to do it with me. Okay, now let's listen to the whole thing.
My dad was a feminist. He was like, don't rely on a man for anything. You can always make your own money. You can always be independent. You never want to be reliant on someone. But what comes with that is me being kind of a very vocal and having strong opinions and not necessarily always agreeing with him. And that can be interpreted as disrespectful in our culture, by not just being submissive to the male in the house.
Now let's analyze it line by line.
My dad was a feminist. He was like,
my dad was a feminist. He was like, my dad. Did you notice how my is shorter than dad? My dad, not my dad. This is because the vowels of the stressed words are always a little longer. This is important to notice and remember because the vowels in many other languages are the same length, but the vowels in English have different lengths. In the word dad, we have the vowel as in cat, dad. Was-a is also shorter, was-a, while the following word, feminist, is stressed, was a feminist. The last T in the word feminist is held and not released. You can do this by only putting the tip of the tongue behind the upper teeth, but not releasing the air while pronouncing the sound. She's also saying the filler word like twice. It was like, we use filler words when we're thinking and trying to organize our thoughts. They're totally fine if they're not overused. The two most prominent words in this line are dad and feminist. English is a very rhythmic language, and this rhythm is achieved by stress and reduction. My dad was a feminist. Da 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 da. Do you hear the rhythm? It's like a song. Okay, let's move on to the next line.
Don't rely on a man for anything.
Don't rely on a man for anything. Here she quotes her dad, what he told her before. Again, we have a held T at the end of the word don't. The article a and the preposition for are reduced to a and for. Don't rely on a man for anything. In the word anything, we have the voiceless TH sound in the middle and the nasal sound NG, where the back of the tongue goes up for the g sound. But we don't release the air through the mouth. The n and the g here are merged together and make one sound. In the n sound, we don't produce the regular n where the tip of the tongue touches behind the upper teeth, but we lift the back of the tongue towards the soft palate in preparation for the g sound. The sounds are merged and the air comes out through the nose. It's not anything, but anything. Okay, let's continue.
You can always make your own money.
You can always make your own money. Here again, we have the filler word like, and it's very reduced as opposed to the more stressed you. Can is reduced to kun, which happens almost always when can is followed by other words and it's not the last word in a sentence. Just as a side note, the negative form can't is never reduced. For example, positive, I can do it versus negative, I can't do it. Always make your own money. Here she connects the words so much that the diphthong o in the adjective own is reduced and the word sounds almost like This happened because she blends the whole phrase, your own money, and makes your own sound like one word, your own. Let's move on.
You can always be independent.
You can always be independent. Here we see the same pattern in the beginning that we saw in the previous line. Kun is reduced and the next word always is stressed. In the word independent, we have an aspirated p. In English, we aspirate a voice that stops p, t, and k most of the time when they come in the beginning of a word, but also in the beginning of a stressed syllable, which is the case here. She puffs a little bit of air after the p, independent. If it's challenging for you to hear it at a normal speed, let's slow it down to 0.25.
Independent. Independent.
Independent. Did you hear the puff after the p? Let me know in the comments. Independent. Again, we have a held T at the end of the word. Let's continue.
Like you never want to be reliant on someone.
Like you never want to be reliant on someone. Here she stresses on never and reduces want to wanna. Never wanna be. And guys, I'm not sure about the next word. It could be relying, but it could also be reliant. I went back and forth several times, but I'm still not sure because if you don't make a prominent NG sound, relying will sound like reliant. But if you hold or drop the t at the end of reliant, it'll also sound like reliant. According to the transcript, she is saying reliant, but honestly, I can't tell. Let's slow it down and listen again and let me know in the comments if you think she is saying relying or reliant.
Reliant on.
Reliant on. Usually when something like this happens, you can guess the right word because it better fits grammatically into the sentence. But in this case, both words work grammatically. Okay, let's continue.
But what comes with that is me being kind of a...
But what comes with that is me being kind of another filler word here. We have a held T at the end of but the T in what I think is a glottal stop, probably because the next sound is k. Glottal stop is produced by obstructing airflow in the vocal tract. In other words, stopping the voice abruptly and starting again, like uh-oh. In this particular case, she stops her voice when she says what. The back of her tongue is already up preparing to touch the soft palate for the k sound. What comes with that? Here we have the same consonant that links both words, the voiced th sound. So she naturally blends both words together. With that, with that. The last sound in the word that is a flap T because she links it with the next word is, and because the T is between two vowels, it's flap. It sounds like a very quick R or D. That is me being kind of a... Here we have another filler word or phrase, kind of. The F in off is voiced and it sounds like a V. She also reduces the vowel to a schwa and off becomes of. She links it with the next article, and the phrase sounds like one word, kind of a. Let's go to the next line.
Very vocal and having strong opinions and...
Very vocal and having strong opinions. And in and, she reduces the vowel to a schwa, drops the d sound, and connects with having, and having. Strong opinions. She connects these two words by reducing the first "a" in opinions to a schwa and merging it with the sound from the previous word. There is no pause between these two words. It's not strong opinions, but strong opinions. The p in opinions is aspirated again because it comes in the beginning of the stressed syllable. Opinions. This time she clearly releases the final consonant in and, but she devoices it, so and becomes and. Let's move on.
Not necessarily always agreeing with him, and
not necessarily always agreeing with him, and she eliminates the vowel between the two s sounds in the word necessarily and just makes the s longer. So instead of necessarily, she says necessarily. She doesn't open her mouth a lot when she says always. She kind of reduces the whole word. Even the diphthong A is almost reduced to a schwa. The L is also not prominent and the word sounds like always, always. Not necessarily always agreeing with him and with him. Here she pronounces the word with a voiceless th. In general, with can be pronounced in two ways. With a voiced th, with, or with a voiceless th, with. But here the next phoneme is the voiceless h in the word him, and maybe that's why she says with the voiceless th. With him, with him. At the end of this line, she drops the d in and, again, and. Let's continue.
that can be interpreted as disrespectful.
That can be interpreted as disrespectful. That can is reduced to kun again. The t in that is also almost dropped. So she just goes for the next sound, k in kun. Instead of putting the tip of her tongue behind the upper teeth, she lifts the back of it for the k and goes straight to it. And maybe there is even a little bit of a glottal stop. That can be. She aspirates the first t in the word interpreted because it comes in the beginning of a syllable, but she's also releasing it with a slight sibilant sound, making it a semi-affricate t, t. Not too much, but it's still not a pure t. Interpreted. Maybe this happens because her tongue goes backwards to prepare for the third sound, which comes next, ter. Ter. The second t, the one in the syllable tud, also sounds a bit like a flap T, but less so than the d that follows, interpreted as. She says as twice, but the first one is blended with the word interpreted, interpreted as. She flaps the last d in interpreted, reduces the as to us, and says interpreted as. Then she pauses a bit and repeats as, but now keeping the pure quality of the vowel, a as in cat, as, interpreted as disrespectful. Here she completely drops the t between the sounds k and f, disrespectful. She also raises her intonation on the stressed syllable, peck, to emphasize the word even more, disrespectful. Okay, let's go on.
In our culture, you know.
In our culture, you know. She reduces our to and stresses on the next word, culture. The k in culture is also aspirated, culture. You know, another filler phrase. The vowel in you is reduced to a schwa, you know, you know. Let's move on to the next line.
By not just being submissive to the male in the house.
By not just being submissive to the male in the house. Here we have another help T in not just, but she completely drops it in the next word, just, and elongates the s, just being. She raises her intonation a little in the word male and then goes down with her pitch at the end of the sentence, which indicates the end of her thought, by not just being submissive to the male in the house. Now let's try to say this fragment together with Jessica. As always, I hope you're doing it with me.
My dad was a feminist. Like he was like, don't rely on a man for anything. Like you can always make your own money. You can always be independent. Like you never want to be reliant on someone. But what comes with that is me being kind of a very vocal and having strong opinions and not necessarily always agreeing with him. And that can be interpreted as disrespectful in our culture, you know, by not just being submissive to the male in the house.
All right, that was all for today. How did you like it? Let me know in the comments, and also tell me if you use the shadowing technique either to improve your pronunciation or to learn another language. If you found this video helpful, please click on the like button and subscribe, of course, if you haven't done it yet. Thanks for watching and for liking and for subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.